Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's John Q Public again. I'm making this video. This is a response video to a video that another YouTube user made. He goes by the name Handy Mayhem. He's a hotep. He's on Twitter. I'm on Twitter too. You can check me out at Teps Are Whack on Twitter. I'm making this video. He made a video a while back. He's referenced it a couple times. There's a temporary service in Chicago, Illinois that's being sued by some African Americans for discrimination because they're only sending out Hispanics to the job sites. This is the temporary service that's doing that. Since he referenced this video a couple times, and I asked the question on Twitter, I asked, who's running this temporary service? Is it run by Hispanics? Is it run by whites? So I did some digging. And I'm not going to name names of the temporary service or the companies involved. But this is a matter that I have quite a bit of experience with because I've been a manager and I've worked at places that filled their positions with temps. So I have some experience with this. I did some digging into the temporary service. The temporary service is the recruiter and the manager are Hispanic. So obviously, them being Hispanic, they're going to lean towards filling the positions with Hispanics. The second thing that I found out when I was doing some digging is these companies that are requesting employees from the temporary service are specifically asking for Hispanic people. Now, for those of you that don't know how temp services work, temp services have clients, and the clients are the businesses that make the product. Well, the clients will put a lot of pressure on the temporary service to bring in a certain type of person. Now, in the article I read, this temporary service used a lot of tactics that's very common in temporary employment, where they use code words to describe the African American employees. And they were Spanish code words, and I'm not going to butcher the Spanish language, but they basically had a code word for a pretty boy. They called some of the African Americans pretty boys because they didn't want to get dirty. They didn't want to work. There's another thing, another code word and that's pretty much on the company side, where there's a term called DNR, which means do not return. And that's what this temporary service is alleging these companies were doing, is they would bring in black employees, and the company would put DNR by their name, which means do not return, which means do not send this person back to our company. Okay? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is reading the article and listening to the interviews with some of the people that work at the temp service. Most of the companies they deal with, most of the managers and line leads are Hispanic. So obviously, again, they're going to request Hispanic people. Is it right? No, it's not right. That brings me to my next point, and this is a very key point. These companies, from my research, because like I said, I'm not going to name the name of the companies because they're involved in a lawsuit. I'm not going to go down that road. But I researched these companies. It appears and I don't think I'm that far off base on this, it appears they're all run by white people. All the CEOs and the presidents are all white people. And some of the companies have been around since like the 1800s. They're mainstays. in the Chicago area. Now, this is where I get into the reply to Handy Mayhem, because Handy Mayhem's putting the blame on the Hispanics. The blame is not on the Hispanics. The blame goes to the white business owners that are refusing to hire African Americans. They're refusing, they're telling, these companies are telling this temp service, do not send African Americans to our company. That is white supremacy. That is discrimination. They're the ones doing the discrimination, because the temporary service, they're gonna do what the client tells them, because if they keep bringing in African Americans, they'll lose the contract. That's how that goes. There's a million temporary services out there, and they lose jobs, they lose contracts, just like a person loses a job. So the higher ups in the hierarchies of these companies are telling the temporary services, do not hire African Americans. That is white supremacy. It has nothing to do with Hispanics. Nothing to do with Hispanics. It's these companies are they don't want black people in there. So to say this is the fault and the blame is on the Hispanics, the blame is not on Hispanics, because these companies are not Hispanic. These companies are not Hispanic owned. They're owned by white Americans. These are the ones that are making the decisions. These are the ones that are telling what employees to bring in. And these are the people that Handy Mayhem and the HOTEPs should be angry with. Because obviously they need the positions to be filled, but they're going out of their way to make sure that African Americans are not getting these positions. So, Handy Mayhem, you didn't tell the complete story. You maybe go on Google and you maybe do some work. It's all good. I knew all along what the story was because I have experience in this line of work. I dealt with this stuff numerous times. I've been dealing with this stuff for 20 years. And this is the problem. This is the problem that America and Americans will not address, is these companies that are hiring illegals or hiring Hispanics or shipping their jobs overseas are run by white people the majority of the time. That's the real issue. My rant is over. That's all I had to say. Peace.